In this training video, what we're going to be discussing is turning in paperwork to Paul Miller Trucking, how it should look, the various steps and procedures to make sure that ultimately the goal of turning in your paperwork the correct way is ensuring that you get paid correctly. So we're going to go through it step by step, and what we're looking at right here, guys, this is a standard straight bill of lading for one of our customers, and you'll notice that this driver has prepared his bills of lading for being turned in by doing a few different things. Number one, up here at the top, you'll notice he has the load number, so 400558 is listed at the top, and he has his driver code written right here. Then down at the bottom, you'll notice that there are a series of 3 signatures. The shipper has signed, the carrier, or in this case the driver, has signed, and then all the way at the bottom down here, the receiver has signed on the date that they received the product. Now, the one thing that is not on this bill of lading that we generally like to see is in and out times. So if you can get your in and out times on the bills, guys, that's a really big help, and I'll show you why here in just a moment. So I'm going to set this aside for just a second, and the next form that you might have to fill out is what's known as a driver unload sheet. Now, the driver unload sheet is where you're going to record one of 3 different things. Either did you have to perform some form of work on the load? That's here in the top section. So did you have to help load or unload the trailer? And did you use a pallet jack or perhaps a hand load or hand unload? And was there any breakdown? So did you have to turn 20 skids into 40 skids or restack, that type of thing? The next section down is a section for lumpers. So if you had a lumper who unloaded the load for you, we would need obviously their service name, the service tax ID number, and the service amount. And then the bottom section is all about detention time. So you would record when you arrived, when you departed, what your scheduled time or appointment time was, etc. Now you'll notice that this form is sort of separated in half. So the left half of the form, that's all about the shipper, okay? The right half of the form, that's all about the consignee or the receiver. And so in this particular scenario, in this particular case, the driver is requesting to be paid detention time, and since it's on the right-hand side of the form, that would relate to the receiver. And they have listed on their form here that their appointment time was 1800, of course 1800 being 6 p.m. They list their arrival time as 1700 or 5 p.m. and their depart time being 2200 or 10 p.m. Now, under the rules for detention time here at Paul Miller Trucking, we give all of our customers 2 hours to get you unloaded. After that, we begin to pay detention time. That, of course, assumes that you're a mileage paid driver and not an hourly paid driver or a wage paid driver. But so this driver, if his appointment time was 1800 or 6 p.m. And he left at 2200, that means the first 2 hours from 1800 to 2000, well, that would be the essentially the free time that we give to the customer to give them to have you unloaded or unloaded. And then from 20 to 2200 would be the 2 hours of detention time that this driver would be paid. And of course, that detention time is $13.50 an hour. So you'll notice also here at the top of the form, the driver has their driver code and the load number. Now guys, this driver code and load number, you're going to see that essentially on everything in this example. And that's because here at Paul Miller Trucking, you are going to put your driver code on every single piece of paper that you ever turn into us, okay? So every bill of lading, every driver unload sheet, every receipt, pretty much everything. If it's made out of paper and it's getting turned into Paul Miller Trucking, it probably needs to have your driver code and your load number on it. Okay, so this driver's requesting detention time. Let's set that form aside for just a moment. This driver also, we'll say, has a couple of receipts that he needs to turn in, and receipts might be fuel receipts. They might be a cash toll that the driver had to pay. It could be related to perhaps a fax that the safety department wanted the driver to fax in a roadside inspection report or an accident report or something along those lines. It could also be perhaps the driver purchased something for the truck or possibly the trailer. Maybe it was a couple of bottles of DEF Perhaps it was a light bulb for a trailer that had a light out, something along those lines. Anything you have to pay cash for or anything you get a receipt for, you need to turn those in along with your paperwork. And you'll notice at the top of this, again, this is a piece of paper, so it's going to have the load number you were on when the receipt was generated. So if you had an expense that incurred while you were on this particular load, then that load number goes to the top along with your driver code. Okay, we'll say this driver had 2 receipts. Now let's go ahead and set those aside for just a moment. Actually, we'll bring all this back into camera view there. And we're going to talk about the last form that you're going to fill out. And that is your weekly trip report and pay sheet. Now, on the weekly trip report and pay sheet, you always want to put your name at the top. Okay, and you're going to want to put your driver code up here as well. So for this particular example, we'll go ahead and put the driver code that we're using. Okay, and then the driver would have put his name here. Then you're going to list over here on the left-hand column all of the loads for which you are turning paperwork in at this time. So here we're just doing one set of paperwork, one load, and that load number was 400558, and it delivered on 5/15/13. Now you notice there's a little box here in the center, and I have an X in that box because this is the box where you put your X or a check if you have a driver unload sheet. And since we did have a driver unload sheet, we would check that box. Now the vast majority of loads you do probably won't have one of these because you know it's highly unlikely that you'll ever have to load or unload a trailer. Let's hope we don't have very many lumpers, and let's hope we don't have detention time very often. So this driver unload sheet should be fairly rare, or at least not that common, so normally you would leave that blank. But if you did have one of these, if you check this box, simply write out to the side the purpose for the driver unload sheet. In this case, it was detention time, so we put that out there. Now, we also have these 2 receipts, and if one of these was, for example, a $3 fax receipt, you would simply write out here, $3 fax receipt. Okay? If you had a scale ticket, you had to weigh out your load at the CAT scale or interstate scale, you would take a copy of that CAT scale ticket and you would attach the receipt to it. So one copy of the scale ticket with one copy of the receipt, and then you would simply write out here, CAT scale, $10 or whatever that scale happened to cost you. You would repeat that process for each load that you had. You can do up to 7 loads on one sheet. And then down here at the bottom, there's one additional section that I want to bring your attention to. And this is where we track our odometers on our trucks. Now there's 2 spots available, and that's just in case you have to use 2 trucks. Maybe your truck went into the shop or something along those lines. But you would put your truck number here. The starting odometer is the odometer reading that you had when you started the first load that's on this sheet. The best way to keep track of this, guys, is when you start your next load. Let's just say it was the 400558 load. Look at your odometer reading and put it down right away. Then when you go to do paperwork, look at your odometer reading again and write it down here. Then immediately go to your next blank weekly trip report and pay sheet and take this end odometer reading and put it in the start odometer reading for the next sheet. So it's already ready to go. And then from that point forward, if you just continuously copy down when you do paperwork your end and immediately put it on the position for the start of the next one, then you'll never have any gaps. Okay? All right, so let's put all this together and see what it should look like when we turn it in. So I'm going to slide this over here for just a moment and slide this back into the center of our view. What you're going to do, what we should see when we get your paperwork is we should see your bill of lading, okay, marked up as we discussed. Then on top of that, you're going to put any driver unload sheets that you happen to have. And then on top of that, you're going to put any receipts that you might happen to have. And then if for some reason your e-log wasn't working and you had to do a paper log on a particular day, if you have any logs, you would also then put your log directly on top. Okay, so it's all nice and neat. You notice receipts aren't all crumpled up and folded. They've been flattened back out. Your bill of lading is laying nice and flat. This should be very, very neat, guys. Neatness counts. Neatness ensures that nothing gets missed. And you know, you don't want something missed because that could end up affecting your pay. So then once you have it all put together nice and neat, we're going to stick a paper clip on it. You can do paper clips, you can do staples, either one is fine. And we would repeat that process for each set of bills that we're going to turn in. So if we had 3 sets of bills, you would have essentially 3 groups of paperwork that were either paper clipped together or stapled together. So I would have one, and then I would set the next one on top, and then I would set the next one on top. So for how many ever bills I turn in, I make a nice little pile like that. And then I put my weekly trip report and pay sheet directly on top of that. And then I'm going to put that into an envelope. We have yellow envelopes that are available near all of our drop boxes. Okay. So if you're going to put it in a drop box, please use one of the reusable yellow envelopes, manila envelopes. If you have to mail it in to us, we also have these available, which you should have gotten in orientation. If you need some more, you can stop by the office. And these are obviously postage prepaid, pre-addressed, all that. You'll just take it and you'll slide it nice and neatly into the folder, and you're done. And you'll just turn that in to either mail it in, or if you're going to turn it in one of these guys, please just put your driver code on the outside and drop it in the drop box. And that's all there is to it. So if you have any questions on paperwork, you can speak with your fleet manager. You can also call the accounting department. You can speak with Amanda at extension 118. All right, have a fantastic day.